Hey, I'm Tom.
And I'm John.
And we're the co-founders of Hanson Frank Illustration Agency.
In this series, we'll be sitting down and talking to our illustrators, finding out more about them, their artistic process, and the creative industry we work in.
Welcome to our podcast.
Good morning, or good afternoon.
Good afternoon, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
We should probably all introduce ourselves.
I'm Tom.
Well, I'm John, and we're here today with
Leonie.
Leonie, and we discussed this. We went for dinner last night,
Yeah.
And we discussed how to pronounce your name. I think we've been.
Well, we've only known you, 10 years?
Yeah.
7 years?
Yeah.
And we were going, is it Leonie or Leonie? Really overthinking it.
I have English relatives who also say Leonie.
Yeah.
So that's, I think it's the way you pronounce it in English. But my mom says Leonie, and my friends say Leonie. No, my mom says Leonie. That's what she says, Leonie. And
Yeah, that's when is that when you
Leonie.
when you're in bad books though? Because mums have a certain way of pronouncing your voice when you're in trouble.
It's probably, maybe she's always angry with me.
Maybe that's it.
No.
So we should probably set the scene a bit. We're sat, we're in Amsterdam. Which neighbourhood are we in? We've walked past a lot of canals. I've got a bit lost.
Yeah, so this is in the middle of the Jordan. It's called, and it's quite a picturesque
Yeah, it's a lovely
part of
neighbourhood.
time.
And it's an old
really
school,
nice.
right?
This is an old school building. I think it was a school up until the 70s, maybe. And then it turned into, I don't know, it's a collective of artists. And I think there are still 4 of the original artists in the building, which are now, I think, they might be like 70 or 80.
Oh, okay.
I just accidentally walked into a studio upstairs.
Oh yeah, did you?
Yeah, I mean, it's some incredible. There's a big installation up there of beer cans. Like a chapel.
Yeah.
It's a lovely old building, though. Nice old stairs and... Nice,
Yeah.
Do you know what this room was?
No.
It feels kind of quite tucked away. I feel like it was the kind of caretaker or the...
It might be.
The office.
It might be a little office, yeah. Yeah, it's quite small, but when I was actually selected to be in here because you have to, when you apply to...
They don't just let anyone in.
They don't just let anyone in, no. And so I was selected, and I was the first one to come and see it. And I was like, ooh, it's really, really small and really quiet as well, because I like to be on the street side of a building, actually, just to have a
Previously,
view.
you were in the palace.
Yeah, the old Palace of Justice, which had an amazing view over the canal, the Prinsengracht, and there was always something going on with tourists. And
I guess there's less distraction here, though.
Yeah, but it is... Actually, I really started to appreciate it, just to be in here, and it's just got such a lovely vibe, and it's so quiet, and it really relaxes me when I'm
But
here.
you've had a lot of studios in, like, abandoned buildings, right?
Yeah, abandoned buildings. They're called anti-kraak, which is really to avoid them being squatted. Is that the word? Yeah. I started in the old Palace of Justice, and I could stay there for 3 or 4 years maybe. And then I moved around really a lot. I think the last studio I had prior to this one, I had to move out within 2 weeks. And then I was like, no, I can't do it. My partner was getting really upset by then having to move me around all the time.
Yeah.
And I had way too much stuff for...
So are you moving out of choice, or has it always been sort of forced upon you?
Yeah, it was forced upon me because then they would develop it, like
so it's while they're doing in planning development, right? And you kind of look after the building.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the kind of thing in London that does not happen. At all. It's it's all just boarded off, closed all the windows. There's probably health and safety. If someone fell over and grazed their knee. Yeah. It just does not happen, but it's such a shame.
Yeah, it is, because I think it's happening a lot here. There are quite a few of these what do you call them, companies who rent out the places.
So you're like a custodian for a few years.
What is that?
Like a custodian, you're sort of looking after the building.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that old Palace of Justice was really exciting as well because it was really big.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I left my studio in the evening, it was always a bit scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the entire building would be dark. And
Nice.
Creepy.
yeah, creepy. And I accidentally once I took the elevator down to the basement instead of the ground floor, and it really freaked me out when the doors opened. And
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
No.
Well, this space is lovely. Well, we'll post some pictures of this, but we're sort of sat here surrounded by paintings, pastels everywhere, paintbrushes,
canvases. There's textile work as well. What was it called? Punch needle
Of tufting.
Yeah, tell us about that. Is this a new thing you've been doing?
I think I picked it up during COVID, maybe when I was at home. I saw it. It must have been on Instagram probably. I thought, I want to try that. I actually saw it when I was on art school, and I always regretted not trying it. But they had this real, you know, the large with the guns, the tufting guns, and the large canvases. And so this is just a miniature version of that, and I can do it by hand, just on the couch.
But in terms of your process, it's so mainly on commission work that we work on. It's digital, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got a lot of paintings here. You've been doing more paintings recently, right?
Yeah.
And does that kind of creep into commissioned projects as well, or is it easier just to go back to digital for those?
No, I haven't done yet any analog work for commissions.
Yeah, just because there's obviously immense feedback. You can't really just adjust the layer.
Yeah, I think so. I think at one point, I think it might develop into making more actual paintings or drawings and using them for commissions.
What I find really interesting looking at the two and kind of comparing the digital versus the paint is the textures. So textures has always been a really prominent part of your work.
Yeah.
So you use Photoshop mainly, right? But isn't there a program, like a 3D program you used before?
Yes, as well. So it's Photoshop but nowadays it's Procreate.
Oh, okay.
Really, and Photoshop just comes in at the very end to maybe touch up things.
But was there not a program, like a 3D modelling program that you used to get the perspective of the buildings?
Yes, exactly. So it's called Google SketchUp.
Okay, SketchUp.
And that's 3D modelling software I use to...
So I think you're the only artist on our books that uses SketchUp.
Yeah?
Yeah. I find it a really interesting... So you do that first, right? To kind of get the 3D structure? Yeah,
it's somewhere in the middle of the process, I think. I do start with creating the rough sketches in Procreate. And when I feel like there has to be a bit more of an accuracy in it within the perspective or the light even.
Because Photoshop has basic perspective in it, right?
Photoshop?
Yeah.
I
think it's kind of developed over time. I think, you can do some perspective, like planes and things like that.
Oh, I haven't used it.
Yeah.
But like I said, I haven't been using...
That's the way with Photoshop though. It's like, there's a new thing. But,
is it? Yeah. Well, I haven't been using Photoshop that much anymore.
No.
I think ever since I've started working on the iPad and Procreate entered my process, I was a big fan.
Yeah, it's
I really love it.
One over so many artists. Procreate.
Yeah.
Like it's been there a long time, and it was always okay. But I think now with the brushes and it's just great.
Yeah. It's much more intuitive, I think, than working through I have this Wacom setup, and I use that in combination with Photoshop.
But sorry, going back to your process, you've done your sketches.
Yeah.
We have those approved by the client.
Yeah. At that time, I might already have worked with SketchUp as well.
Yeah.
Because it also is really great for making the best composition, because you can just move things around a bit. You can just change the angle a bit, so the overall setting might look more dramatic, or You can work with light.
There's a real, I always think with your work, there's a real kind of technical accuracy.
Yeah.
And I wonder, because there's obviously you have a lot of architecture in your work, and just kind of going back to the start, your father was an architect. Right? Yeah. So how do you think that's influenced you, or is that a coincidence, or is that something that you've grown up with and brought into your work consciously?
Yeah, I always wonder about that, because I haven't been drawing architecture for that's a good idea.
It's beer o'clock.
Yeah.
What is the time? It's past midday, right? Cheers.
Yeah. So no, I haven't started with the architecture up until I think 10 years ago. Maybe a bit
so
longer.
That came a bit later.
It came a bit later, yeah. Actually, because I was commissioned for the newspaper I worked for, like on a weekly basis. And they wanted me to draw, various locations in the Netherlands.
I think this is when we first saw your work and first started speaking to you. It was very kind of architecturally led.
Yeah.
Initially.
Yeah.
But did I read? So I read that you grew up in a house your father designed.
Yeah.
So where was that?
Where was that? Yeah, and he built it himself.
He built it as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, as well. So that was in the south of the Netherlands, in a small village. And he designed it, and he built it, and he would come back from work, from the office, and then he would build in the evenings.
Work on the house. So how long did that take?
Yeah,
was this most of your childhood, or?
Yeah, well, there were workers on the side, but builders on the side. But I think we've been sleeping in a shed for maybe the entire summer.
Yeah. Okay.
Just on the outside of the house, in the garden. Yeah, but yeah, to go back to your question, I don't know if it's never been a conscious influence.
Okay.
My dad's job, I think I do have the same need for accuracy, I think, that he has.
Yeah, and I read that it gave you an interest in functionality.
Yes.
Yeah, and simplicity, and I think again that's kind of something you see in your work.
Yeah, and I think what I like about drawing, what I like about architecture in my work is, there's a need for accuracy, and the shapes are they need to be that way. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, proportioned or technically accurate. I mean, we do a lot of work with we do a lot of architectural commissions, but I would recommend that to any young illustrator, to draw buildings and have that in your portfolio, because it's just a super commercial thing to do. We work with a lot of hotel chains or property developers, and quite often you're essentially drawing a building that doesn't exist yet. You're working from a render.
Yeah.
But they want to obviously present this building in the best light, and I think illustration is a great way to do that.
I think it's interesting that you say it's commercially interesting, because at the time I really started focusing on drawing architecture, I actually lost a lot of clients as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I deliberately stopped drawing people. And then so all the women's magazines, they just pulled out.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm not interested anymore. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about people, because I think it's only been fairly recently that you started to introduce people even back into your architectural work.
Yeah.
And for me, it completely gives it a new perspective. And I think like we said before, that clients do like to have people in illustrations. I've never kind of assessed it properly, but I would say at least 80% of the work that gets commissioned has a person in it in some form or another.
Yes.
So is that kind of been a conscious thing to start drawing people again, or?
I have to try to reconstruct how this happened, because it's gradually come back into my drawings. People. I stopped drawing them like 10 years ago, maybe, because I just was so much more interested in the surroundings. And I always felt that from the moment you draw a person into that setting, that's where the focus is.
Yeah.
Just stop looking at the surroundings, and also when I stopped drawing people, I felt my solutions were less obvious, especially in editorial work, where you have very often, I don't know, human relationship problems, and if you don't draw people, you have to come up with another solution.
Yeah.
Which is,
do something a bit more clever and a bit less
yeah,
obvious.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a really deliberate choice to stop. But now I think I've sort of overeaten with the architecture and with the geometric shapes, and I just had the need to bring in more organic shapes, and then suddenly there were cars. I started drawing a lot of cars. I thought they have the same.
A lot of the stuff you're drawing at the moment is very super cropped in.
Yeah.
So it's a small detail, or it's a interesting
like a
angle.
Coffee shop.
Yeah. So it's almost like you're telling quite intimate stories, but with minimal detail, or with it's almost the complete opposite to drawing a huge building, drawing someone's feet or their hands or their dog next to their leg.
Yeah, exactly. I like there to be detail within that cropped scene. But I do like to focus on shapes.
Yeah.
I think there's a nice balance that you can kind of get with both aspects. So you've got the geometrical, you've got the architectural. But I'm looking at the wallpaper piece here. Yeah. Wallpaper magazine. Which is basically an architectural illustration, but you've got like a guy walking a dog and a jogger.
Yeah.
I think that's just a really nice balance there. And you've also, I don't think I've noticed this before, the depth of field. You've got the kind of blurred out trees in the foreground. Yeah. Is that a new... I haven't seen that before.
No, this is actually the first piece I did this.
And there's a bit of opacity to it as well.
A bit of a?
Opacity, like the transparency?
Yeah. I think this is the reason also why this is on my wall, because I really love this drawing.
Yeah.
I think it turned out really well, because it was just actually... I was commissioned to just make the illustration of the building, which was non-existent. They gave me the renderings.
So this is a render, yeah.
So that's again so quite often in these contexts they will go to illustration because they can't go and photograph the building that's not there.
Yeah.
But that sort of depth of field technique is obviously very common in photography.
Yeah.
So it's nice how you've worked that into the illustration as well. I think you should definitely do more of that.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of aspects in this drawing that worked out. That turned out really, really good with implementing the people as well and the depth.
Do we have that on your profile? I don't think we do.
We need to add that.
Don't we?
Yeah.
We'll talk to Stuart.
This is a constant Hanson Frank thing of updating websites. I'm sure all illustrators have this, but
I think a lot of people are guilty of updating their Instagram and their social feeds, but not necessarily putting it in the portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
But the website for me is, I know we're getting a bit off topic here, but it's so important. It's it's our, what I would call our shop window. So it has to look the best it can all the time. Yeah. Constantly updating it, tweaking it, changing it. Yeah. Really important.
Sure. And you, because you're someone that has taken a lot of older work out of your portfolio, you sort of change things up, don't you?
I always change the portfolio because I'm quite quick to feel like I don't like the work anymore, so...
Yeah, I always think it's because I think for an artist or a creator, you're not only reacting to the work in its finished format, but you've kind of got the baggage of the process, so you're kind of... It's quite emotive. You're thinking back to how you felt when you were doing that piece and maybe what was going on in your life and how easy that process was. Yeah. Whereas I think for us as agents, we can just look at it and just look at it as an image. Yeah. So sometimes we have a different relationship with different projects to the artist.
Exactly. Yeah, it even goes as far as when I'm told to use a certain color palette, I might struggle with that
and
feel like the drawing just isn't really
doesn't
good.
feel like you.
Yeah, because just it's not the right kind of green.
There's some brands that share their color palette.
It's not done very often, but whenever
nice.
whenever I'm told to use proper certain colors, I'm always a bit fearful.
I can't remember who said it to me, but the one time it happened, and the colours were basically exactly the same as their school uniform.
Yeah.
And I think everyone just hates that colour of their school uniform. Yeah. So they really struggled to work with that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm pretty precise with my colours.
Yeah.
I have this really strong feeling for how this blue should exactly look and how that relates to the brownish red in a drawing.
Yeah, and how they sit together.
Yeah, how they sit together. And then when they want me to change that color into maybe a more vibrant red, for instance, I'm thinking like, oh shit, but then I have to change the blue.
But I know quite a lot of illustrators who, with client work, if there is a color choice they don't particularly like, they'll tweak it for their own portfolio.
Yeah.
And put I've
done that.
a revised version up.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's one way around it.
Yeah.
We'll kind of go back a bit, but I wanted to talk a little bit about how you started out, and because I know you were quite a young mum, and I've read that you had your daughter. Is your daughter right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were sort of working as an artist at the time, and tell us about that time of your life and how that sort of.
So I graduated from art school when I was 21, 22 maybe, and I studied fine arts.
And was that in Amsterdam or?
No, that was in the south, in Maastricht. And actually, right straight after graduating, I moved to Amsterdam because I thought, yes, this is where I should be.
Yeah, the bright lights.
Yeah,
big city.
Being an artist should be in Amsterdam, and I didn't have a place. So I ended up in a squatted hospital for a few months, looking for my own place. Also, I had a studio over there, and I met actually the father of my daughter, who wasn't the father, obviously. I met him, and within a month, I was pregnant.
So you're 21?
Yeah, I was 22 by then.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so that was a bit of a... Yeah, I had to adapt, really.
Yeah, bit of a curveball.
Yeah, because I was living in this... by then I wasn't living in a squat anymore, but I did have a studio in a burned down building, which we squatted ourselves. Mm. And... I was really trying to get into a postgraduate at the time here in Amsterdam. It's called the Ateliers. And I was already invited to present my work, which was a big deal because they only accept like 25 people to come and show their work.
Okay, so it's very competitive.
Out of hundreds of people. Yeah, so I was nearly there. And then they told me when I was there, they told me, you just go and paint for another year and you come back. Oh. And so I started painting, but then I got pregnant.
Okay.
And then so I had to change plans. I was I felt a responsibility to just make sure that I did well. And so I started building websites, really. I had this old computer back home, and I would just look at the source of the websites and try to understand. So I started writing HTML.
So it's kind of a conscious decision to sort of say, well, actually, art is something that's going to have to wait. I need to do something a bit more pragmatic.
Yeah, but still I wanted to be creative. Yeah, so I thought, maybe I can create websites.
And that was a time of sort of everyone needed a website, right?
Yes, it was really upcoming then, it was 2000.
Yeah.
So
that was before the dot-com crash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I I taught myself to write HTML, and I got a job at a women's magazine to do the website. And from there, I entered the world of magazines, and became a designer for print.
Oh, so you were in publishing. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did you like that world?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes, I did, because I was when I went to apply for the job, I didn't have any experience. We were still working with Quark Express.
Yeah,
I remember Quark. Yeah.
And I had to know Photoshop, and I didn't know anything at all. And they still offered me the job.
Yeah.
And I only wanted to work for 3 days, and they actually wanted someone for full time. So I still, up until this day, I don't know what made them hire me, but I think I was really eager.
And this is, the coloured iMacs when they just come out. Were you using one of them?
Yes, the big.
Yeah. They came in like 5 different colours.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So then I became a designer for print. And also they asked me on the very first day, the art director, I remember, she said, Leonie, what do you like? What do you think you're gonna like most about the job? And I was hired as a designer, and I said, I think doing the illustrations. And she said, well, you're not hired for that.
That's not your job.
I said, oh, really? I didn't know nothing.
Did you manage to do any at all?
Yeah, so it really started there. She said, you can
that often
do
happens.
Some illustrations.
Yeah, or like they find you into photography, and they like, oh, okay.
So and that's how I really got into the illustrating. And
so what was the magazine?
It was a women's magazine, and it's no longer around. But it was pretty huge back then. Called Flair. I don't know. I think maybe it's still online. I don't know. But it was a big deal actually back then. And I think after 5 years, I quit the job because I wasn't really satisfied with the illustrations I was doing. I always felt like there was something lacking. I was just not good enough. And I thought maybe I just have to proper focus on this now and start doing this full time. And so I quit my job. And and just
that's a pretty big move to do.
Yeah, it was.
I think there's so many people who are in a job.
Yeah.
We get emails from I'm an art director, but I love doing illustration. So to actually make that leap to being a freelance illustrator is great.
It was a bit scary.
Yeah.
And I think I was I don't know. I think I've been really lucky because my first client was a huge Dutch newspaper who just called me. And I think, I try to remember, but it might have been even in the first week of me starting as a freelancer. And asking me if I wanted to do this illustration. And I remember being a bit disappointed by their fee, almost not taking the job because I was like, oh, this is not much.
But did they say it'd be great for your portfolio?
No, I accepted it anyway, so they didn't even have to tell me. But I made a drawing for a friend of mine who lived in Brighton, and she had she just gave birth. And I made her a drawing and sent it to her. And there was another friend who came over, who actually worked at that newspaper, who saw it. And,
oh, wow.
Showed the art director.
Yeah.
That's just my luck, I think.
Yeah.
And
so but also you're kind of putting it out there in the universe. You have a hand in that luck.
Yeah. I think that might have been luck, but after that, I just worked my ass off. I really worked all the time. And I was so invested in making it work. I really worked all the time.
And do you think you were kind of fueled by the fact that you had another career and you'd experienced doing a job that didn't fully satisfy you? So was that kind of your drive?
Yeah, I don't know. I just, it all clicked, I think, because I've been drawing since I've been drawing forever. My mom always told me she had to hold my hand with the pencil in it because I couldn't even hold the pencil yet, and I wanted to draw, and she had to help me. So I've been always doing that, and I think I never imagined becoming an illustrator because I always wanted to be somewhere maybe in fine arts or I don't know, illustrator. It just never appealed to me that much. I don't know why that is. I think growing up in a small village, I just didn't see the possibilities maybe.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just don't realise it's an option.
No. And now we have internet, but back then I had to do with a small library and maybe the few children's books that were in there, and I think this children's books type of illustration just never appealed to me that much, and so it never was on my radar to become.
So I guess you weren't seeing the type of work you wanted to create out there, so you didn't know it was a possibility.
No, exactly. And I think only when I started working for the magazines, I thought, hey, this could be something I could do.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how you can find yourself doing something that isn't your first choice or isn't the way you expected life to go.
Yeah.
But it's not a waste of time, and actually, quite often, like you say, you have that moment where it just clicks, and it leads you down a different path, and it kind of all makes sense when you look back at it.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And now I just love it. I just love being an illustrator, and it's so I feel I can just. I always have the clients that I work with always give me so much support and freedom to. Really
Are there any kind of dream projects or clients that you still want to get that you haven't worked on yet?
That's a good question. Yeah, I always want to do more for the New Yorker, which is always the holy grail.
Yeah, we talked about this a bit last night.
Yes, we did. I did a couple of them, a couple of pieces for them, but of course, that's.
But you have worked with them.
Sorry?
You have actually worked with them.
Yeah,
which is
more
than most.
Yeah.
And you've done some big covers. You did cover for Elle Decoration and a cover for Wallpaper.
Wallpaper as well, which was the first illustrated cover they did.
Oh, right. Nice.
Yeah, that was really.
That's really a big deal, actually. I remember when we've had who was it? Wired. Wired was so. They just had this method. It was a really striking portrait, month after month after month, and sometimes they'd come to us and they'd say, okay, right, we're going to do an illustration, and then we'd do it. And then it would fall through. The senior person would be like, no, we're going to go back to photography.
Okay.
But it's. I feel like brands, over year on year, they just get more and more confident with putting illustration at the front of their brand.
Well, it's because you're on the newsstand.
Yeah.
And you have that cover has to sell that magazine.
Yeah.
So there is nervousness about doing a cover that might not jump out at people, and sometimes that leads you down celebrity portrait route. Because I guess that sells magazines, but I think when someone's bold and does something very graphic or very different, it just jumps out.
It does. I think I always feel the covers that jumps out the most to me when I'm in a store and you see all the magazines are the illustrated ones, but that might be just because I'm.
Yeah, maybe that's just where our eye goes.
Yeah.
One project that you did, and I know it kind of, I think COVID got in the way a bit, but you did a residency for Snake Maltings.
Oh yeah.
Which is tell us about it. It's in Suffolk, and it's
it's this huge music venue. I think it's
it's a kind of mixed space, isn't it? There's a music element to it, and shops and restaurants.
Yeah, exactly. And it's situated in a lovely, lovely landscape. I've done some pretty beautiful walks.
So you got to visit the site, and
they invited me to come over and make some drawings on site for marketing. And then so I did I think maybe 6 illustrations in the end, and then unfortunately COVID happened, so they couldn't. They didn't have any.
Is that a nice process, kind of? I mean, some artists just like to retreat to their studio and.
Oh no, I love to go on a residency.
Really? Yeah.
I love it. I was asked to go to Nantes.
Oh wow.
So for a commission I did with you guys, I think it was like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Just shortly before COVID. And no, I just love it. I just love just to visit new.
Do you do that a lot in your? I mean, obviously, it's the dream when a client sends you somewhere.
Yeah.
But do you do it a lot off your own back? Do you travel for inspiration?
No, I don't travel enough, and that's why that's why I love to be invited for artisan residencies. Because now it's just I think with becoming a mom at that early age and really focusing on my career, it's just it didn't happen enough.
Yeah.
I didn't get to travel around enough and.
Yeah. Do you feel like you'll have more time for that in the coming years?
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. So my son is my daughter's 22 now.
Yeah.
And my son is 13. So I definitely hope to be seeing more places.
Yeah. A bit more self-sufficient at that age.
Yeah.
For any clients listening, please take note.
Like New York or I don't know.
I think the best one are the hotel chains. Where they say, come and stay in the hotels. Yes. Do some illustrations.
Oh, I did that last year. I did it in the Grand. It's a really posh hotel here in the center of Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And they invited artists to spend a week in one of their suites.
Oh, that's the dream.
That's the dream. It was. And I could take Joseph with me.
Lovely.
It was lovely. Yeah, it was great. And we were really spoiled. And I was just walking around all day, making drawings and.
I just think it's such a nice thing for a client to do.
Yes.
To, invite an artist into their space and give them that freedom to create something inspired.
Yeah, it was really amazing.
And we were talking last night about your little. Well, it had various names. It was called a studio. It was called a shed. But you've built kind of a retreat, or
yes, in the Westerpark, which is really close to our house, and there are these allotments, and people are allowed to build their little tiny house, and we can spend the summer there. Really,
wow!
I could be there now, but there's no water.
Okay, but
I'm allowed to be there.
But there will be water.
There will be water. I think they will be there on the 1st of March again. So then we can finish it. And you can find me drawing then either here or...
Right, so you've got a couple of spaces. And do you grow like vegetables?
Yes, I started, but it didn't work.
No, okay.
It's
oh God.
It's really hard.
Yeah, it is.
I remember one time so my parents had gone travelling for a year and I stayed in their house and I'd grown some vegetables and my dad came back and I was like, look at the carrots. And he was like, no, they're weeds. And I'd just been tending these weeds ever so proudly. It's harder than it looks.
It is. Yeah, and also I think you probably have to be there every day to
tend to it. Frank, obviously our grandfather, he had an allotment and I think it was probably the reason he was married so long, happily, because he would spend a lot of time at the allotment.
Yeah, I can totally
he grew a lot.
He did grow a lot,
Yeah.
Greenhouse and all sorts.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a greenhouse as well.
He used to message my sisters who lived in Australia and ask them to send plant samples and then he'd try and grow them in his greenhouse.
Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just such a luxurious thing to have. We live quite small and the studio is quite small and then that place is quite small as well, but
so you've got a couple of
add them all up,
bolt holes.
Okay.
It's nice.
Yeah.
And you see yourself, you're kind of very settled in Amsterdam. You see yourself staying here?
Well, I don't know. We have been looking for places outside of Amsterdam, but obviously in the nearby it's too expensive.
Yeah.
And then we've been considering moving back to the south to be with our family as well. Our parents are getting older. And
of course. Yeah.
It might be
So are they still in the house that your father built?
No, they live in another house my father built.
Oh wow, he's gone again.
Kept building and or renovating or they moved around for. They had a couple of houses and then now they have I think this will be the last one. It's really lovely in the woods.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really good.
And what did your mum do? Was she creative? Was she an artistic influence?
No. She was a stay-at-home mom. Really, traditional, actually. Yeah.
So she just tidied up the pens and.
Yeah, she just was busy buying crayons and helping me hold them.
Helping you hold them. Amazing. We talked. One question that came up last night was about the Amsterdam canal system.
You promised me.
Tell us about the canals. Why are they there?
Actually, Joseph and I talked about this, and he was like, "Gee, that's so simple, wasn't it? You asked me about the history of the Amsterdam canals. Yeah. And we were like, oh my god, I don't know, but we do. It's obviously it's always been there were all these warehouses, and the canals were used to transport the goods to A,
from A
river.
to B. Yeah. But what it's meant now is you've got this. I mean, anyone that doesn't know the city, it's this incredible series of canals and beautiful old buildings alongside. But you were saying last night that because you noticed a lot of the buildings are kind of wonky.
Yeah.
So they're kind of, but they're built on sticks.
Yeah, wooden beams.
Reclaim land.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of time before it all collapses, probably.
Yeah, we saw some interesting buildings on the way here this morning.
Yeah.
What really strikes me is, and I don't know if it's just because we're in the centre, but the amount of independent cafes, restaurants, shops is huge. Like, you get it. There's certain streets in other cities where you get that.
Yeah.
But not to the extent here.
Yeah.
That's a really great thing.
Yeah, it's nice. Well, there is a nice energy, I think, in Amsterdam. I love when I visited you guys last month in London. It's totally different.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's got to do with scale. I love London though.
Yeah, I think, London's great, but it's so nice to come somewhere that's a bit more condensed.
Yeah.
I feel like Amsterdam is perfect because everything is here. But
yeah.
It's all right on your doorstep.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of people who come to visit me in London, and then they've got a friend who, I don't know, like I live in South London. They've got a friend in East London.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's an hour away. Like, what? Where north to South Amsterdam's, I don't know, a 20-minute bike ride?
Yeah.
You
can basically cross Amsterdam on your bike within half an hour, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the plan this afternoon. Take some bikes out.
Yeah.
Go and explore.
Where should we go?
Oh, so many things.
I always go to Vondel Park, but it's not sunny.
This is not the weather from Vondel Park. No. Let me think about it.
We'll have a wander.
Get back to us. Well, thank you so much for inviting us to your studio.
Sure, you're very welcome.
And come and see us in London again soon.
Yeah, definitely will.
Nice. Thank you very much. And if you'd like to know more about Handsome Frank and our artists, check out our website, handsomefrank.com.
Thanks very much for listening.
Handsome Frank. Handsome Frank.